Who's going to actually put us in a position to where we are at our healthiest point, to where we have our healthiest children, to where our obesity rate of our children being at 50% is maybe a little bit, we can get a little bit closer to where China is at 3%. Obesity directly leads to sicknesses and directly leads to big pharma and a lot of these big corporations making a lot of money. That's who RFK Jr. is going at. Let's check out the video.
Democrats and estranged from his family, RFK Jr. has long been desperate for validation. So desperate, in fact, that he has now joined forces with none other than Donald Trump. Of course, as the most prolific.
Listen to how she sounds. This is supposed to be journalism. This is supposed to be journalism. And in the first 14 seconds, listen to how she's disrespecting him, how thirsty he is. What does RFK Jr. give off? What is he thirsty about? Trying to make the world healthy, trying to make Americans healthy? What do you like? It's such a shame. It's such a shame because what it does is for the people that watch MSNBC and the people that support MSNBC and actually believe the things that a lot of their pundits are saying, they are going to be entirely bamboozled and misled by people like her. Why would you start off speaking about an RFK Jr. like that? And it either shows that you, one, know little about what he's done, little about what he stands on, little about the agenda items that are important to him, or you just don't care and you're willing to get on TV, lie, and say anything that needs to be said if it supports the agenda and the efforts of MSNBC.
Anti-vax conspiracy theorists in the country, RFK Jr.'s endorsement of Trump on Friday was a long time coming. And frankly, they have a lot in common. Both have enormous egos that definitely cloud their judgment. Both rely on misinformation to prey on people's fears, and both leverage their
This is what's so crazy. And you know what's so sad about all this? The majority of MSNBC watchers, just like the majority of Fox watchers, will not do the due diligence and actually look up anything that she just said. All these critiques that she just gave about him, people will not look into it. People will just accept it. Why? Because we just hate Trump. Why? Because we just hate Kamala. Nobody's actually going to do the due diligence and actually look into that. So therefore, what ends up happening? This is why we're in the position that we're in. Because of these news stations, because of the MSNBCs, because of the CNNs, because of the Fox Newses. They are not journalists. They are not journalists. They are propaganda pushers. She is lying.
last name for their own self-interest. But for Kennedy, this also marks another act of rebellion against his own family and the institutions that they helped to build. So he may share the same name as his father, but he could not be more different. See, his dad, the real Robert Kennedy, was driven by a genuine concern for the health and welfare of the American people.
Ma'am, that is what his entire campaign is based on. The health and wellness of the American people. And in case you haven't noticed, America, we are doing terribly when it comes to our health. We claim we're the greatest country in the world. And if you just looked at us from a health standpoint, from a disease standpoint, we would be nowhere close to the top. What is she talking about? The fact that she feels so comfortable talking about what his dad would feel, even though his dad raised him, I don't know. It's the arrogance.
He was a champion of the underprivileged and the vulnerable. He appealed to people's better angels, not.
This is exactly what RFK does. Not just sitting at a desk like she is. RFK Jr.'s history is on him fighting for the little guy in communities, with the water system in New York, with Native American tribes. We talk about this all the time. They are just lying. He has an entire history. He's an environmentalist attorney. His job, like literally, he fights for the environment to be a healthier environment. So therefore we can have a healthier place where we're living. That's what his entire career has been based on.
Their worst instincts. And when it came to modern medicine, he said those who with power and influence have a, quote, obligation of responsibility.
I think that, as I said at the beginning, I think the medical profession has made a major difference in the United States and will continue to make a major difference in the United States. But I think that we have to recognize, those of us who have the advantages that you have and that I have, that we have an obligation and responsibility to those who do not.
What Kennedy was saying there to a group of doctors in Indiana, that was the audience, that it's not enough to merely do no harm. He felt strongly that people in a position to help others have an obligation to do so. Needless to say, the apple has fallen pretty far from the tree. It's out of the orchard. RFK Jr. has not only failed in his obligation of responsibility, he's actually done the opposite. He's used his privilege and his name to encourage the most vulnerable Americans to turn their backs on modern medicine. He used falsehoods to stoke widespread fear of even routine vaccines, including the vaccines that eradicated measles, mumps, and polio. And now, if Trump and
So she made it seem as if he doesn't like vaccines, right? She made it seem as if he doesn't like vaccines. But this is what we do. This is what we do. We go to the tape. We just go to the tape. Take a look at this video.
One of the obstacles also that's keeping you essentially from that base of the Democratic Party is your history of anti-vaccine activism. Medical community, the medical establishment considers you a dangerous purveyor of vaccine misinformation and a threat to public health, is saying. The Los Angeles Times has that as a headline. So ultimately, the people of New Hampshire will make up their mind about this. They're going to take measure of you as a candidate and a person, your views, your policy positions. My question is this: if you're the president, how does vaccine policy change? And we know this is more of a state-by-state issue, but how at the federal level will you bring your views to bear at the federal government?
Well, it is a federal issue because the federal government recommends and approves new vaccines. And my only argument, I've never been anti-vaccine. I'm called anti-vaccine because that's a way of kind of marginalizing and discrediting me in the view of the public. But I had all my children vaccinated. I was fully vaccinated.
I had all my children fully vaccinated. I was fully vaccinated. But yet these CNN and MSNBC have consistently lied to us. That is a lie. Like, I think we've been so accustomed to just the news just giving us propaganda and just giving us lies and manipulating us to the point where we don't even get upset anymore. We don't even check it. Think about it like this. If we had a friend or somebody that we know at work, they lie to us one time. They can tell us the truth 99 times. But if they lie to us once, we'll be looking at them funny for the rest of their lives. Yo, they lied about that, yo. They lied about that. But when it comes to these news stations, we can blatantly see that they are lying, blatantly see that they are giving us propaganda, manipulating us, and it doesn't even make us ask the question why. Forget getting upset. I forget looking at it from a standpoint where it's like, okay, they lied to me. They're supposed to be journalists. Not only did they lie to me, but they continue to spew these lies, continue to say these things that they know are not true, just so they can continue putting money in their pocket. Because the big pharma companies that support MSNBC and CNN, they're telling them to say this because they can't afford to have a candidate like RFK Jr. get the microphone, get a platform, and call them out on their BS. Because they're scared that RFK Jr. and his common sense approach would wake up too many people. It would have them calling out too many people. Think about it. Anthony Fauci, the leading go-getter. Is this any different than a used car salesman? You're up on TV telling us that we should take a vaccine that you actually, which RFK Jr. exposed, you actually make money off of. You get commission. You get royalties off of that Moderna vaccine. How is RFK Jr. the guy that we're looking at as feeding us lies? How do we not protect an RFK Jr.? It says a lot about us that we do not protect an RFK Jr.
And I've never been anti-vaccine. But what I've said is I'm pro-science and pro-safety, and we ought to subject vaccines, which are mandated for healthy children, not for sick people. We ought to subject them to at least the kind of rigorous placebo-controlled trials that are mandated for every other medicine. It's the only medicine that's exempt from pre-licensing safety trials, and none of the vaccines that are currently on.
Did you hear what he said? The only medicine that is mandated from hold on, what did he say?
Pre-licensing safety trials.
Pre-licensing
and none of the vaccines that are currently on the 70, I got 3 shots a kid. My kids got 72 shots, which are now, essentially mandated for American children. And none of them have been subjected to pre-licensing safety trials. And what I would do is say, let's do the trials. Let's find out what the risk profile is, what the benefit profile is, and then allow parents to make up their minds about, whether they want to use vaccines for their children. Each of those vaccines, that ought to be a free choice.
All right, Mr. Kennedy.
What? Does this scream, does anything that he just said scream anti-vaxxer? Please let me know. But then when we go back to the other video that we're getting ready to go back to, we have this lovely lady saying all of these things about him being an anti-vaxxer, accusing him, using a reference from his dad, a speech that his dad made that was focusing on the health and well-being. You take a clip and try to use that, he's talking about the health and well-being of our American citizens, and you try to use that clip to, I don't even know it didn't even make sense to me, to be totally honest. She does realize that we live in a world, a lot of the things that RFK Jr. was speaking out against, they were actually silencing those very same doctors that she said that RFK Jr.'s dad was speaking to in that clip that she played. Those doctors, there were a lot of doctors on Twitter during 2020, doctors, specialists, that were being silenced and censored because they were saying things that did not go along with the Get Along gang and the powers that be that are aligned with MSNBC, CNN, Fox, and all these other news stations, mainstream stations. Let's keep going.